Good morning, Pete. Don't know if you can tell or not, but I was out in the sun a lot this weekend and I wore my sunglasses. What do you think?
I was wondering about what was going on with your raccoon look, because we just did the specialist call and I thought you looked a little goofy, so now I know what it is.
I mean, I always look a little goofy, Pete, but
No,
yeah, I
sometimes
look
you look a lot goofy, Bill.
goofier than normal. Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah, we hit the pool on Saturday, and then on Sunday, that's where I really took a beating. My buddy has a boat down here and took us out, and yeah, it's not good. It's not good, but
Well,
you should see my wife if you think I'm red.
well, I'll tell you, I don't think you're going to get a lot of sympathy.
Or
You're probably not
symphony.
going to get a symphony either. But,
No.
from a lot of our listeners and viewers, because some people, when they open their front door, they're still looking at snow, Bill. Um, it could be a lot worse for you down there.
Well, I've always said the best friend to have is a friend that's got a boat. Enjoy that, but I don't ever want to own one. I don't want to take care of one. I don't want to pay for one. But anyway, we've got a guy that's writing boatloads of annuities.
Speaking of
And
boats, right? Yeah,
how, how do you like that transition?
I like that. That was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere. So I might look stupid, but the brain is functioning today.
Happy to
So
hear.
let's get him in here and in on the other side of the music and talk a little bit about annuities and maybe even a little IUL business. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Retirement Solutions Podcast. Okay, Pete. So here we are, and again, I love annuities. I think that they are such easy, low-hanging fruit for the people that will just look for them, find them, and they can be a fantastic way to help our clients save money in a safe place, maybe get guaranteed lifetime income if that's what they're looking for. And they can be a very nice payday for us as well. So we obviously don't want to focus on our payday. If we do the right thing for the client, we'll get paid, but we are all here to make money. And we are all here to earn a living for our families, and annuities can be a great way to do that while really doing well for your clients. So we've got somebody in here that has submitted a boatload of annuity business this year and about to get some of that paid and issued. And so I'd like to hear more about what's going on over there. So let's bring him in, Pete. I'd like everybody to welcome to the podcast, Mr. Paul Sharp.
All right.
Welcome, Paul.
Hey guys, good morning. Bill, yeah, you are looking a little extra tan. I don't see the raccoon eyes, but I definitely see the tan.
Well, it's a little, yeah, a little pinkish through here,
Yes,
and
He's
you'll
very
be blended by
self-conscious.
tomorrow. You'll be fine.
it'll go away. It'll go away. But anyway, Paul, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is, I believe, your second trip into the Retirement Solutions podcast. So you accepted the punishment for yet a second time, and we're grateful for that. Just to give everybody a little background, if they didn't see the first episode or it's been a while, maybe forgot. Tell us a little bit about your path that led you to Equus over time.
So I was with a different IMO, and I was doing mortgage protection. Really disliked it. That just wasn't for me. It is definitely for a lot of people, but for me, it just wasn't what kind of drove me and got me to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I gotta, go do this. I've been working and doing, retirement planning with teachers for, I guess, the better part of almost 5 years now. And I absolutely love it. It is what gets me going. My mother was a teacher. My wife was a teacher. And to be able to help that particular, group of folks really just makes it worthwhile. And, it was funny because you've got a tan, and my wife and I, we just got back from Belize, and she's the teacher with FOMO, right? So she was like soaking up every bit of sun that she possibly could. And I'm trying to just hang out with her, right? Well, I tan fast. So I came back like a lobster. Well, I've been working with a lot of folks in Massachusetts and Virginia. They have been hit with 22, 28 inches of snow, and I come on video and I'm looking like a beach bum. And they were like, that's not fair. It's just not fair. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, but Belize was great. And some wonderful folks up there, and it's been great working with them.
You just let them know you're so successful that you needed to take some time to go to Belize and just kind of relax your brain a little bit because you were helping so many teachers.
That actually was kind of the case. I hit 2025 was a really difficult and kind of a challenging year. It was a positive year, but it was a challenging year for me.
You got married in 2025, right?
I did. And so a lot of things happened in 2025. So I'm actually coming up on my 1 year anniversary, March 20th. And so, going into a wedding last year, we planned it down in Aruba. We had 30 some odd people, come down to it. So I paid for, everything, and there's a lot of stuff going on, right? So we get down there, do the wedding. That was a positive. My wife was still a teacher at the time. And so she had to finish her school year. And then she moved in. Everything about last year was, I'm going to say, complicated, right? Getting 30 people out of the country to a wedding, that's complicated. We started a tulip business. So like literally a, a tulip business. And so we do tulips and sunflowers now. And so that was complicated. Our tulip business started 4 days after we got back from the wedding. It was absolutely crazy timing, hence the delayed honeymoon. And then the day that my wife moves into the house, we were also moving my daughter into college. And so that was complicated. And we park a U-Haul at my house, and she comes and opens up the garage door, and I've got 5 rooms that are flooded. And my office, bedroom, closet, bathroom, you name it, like everything's flooded. And we had been gone for about a week. So that started a process, right? No help from the insurance company. They, said, "Oh no, it's groundwater." A lot going on. And so all of that to kind of say, I try not. So I backslid last year. So I think the year before that, I was what, number 2, number 3 in the company for annuities, and I think last year I might have been 13th. That didn't sit well with me. I don't like that. I'm competitive enough. I don't like going backwards, and I'm not comparing myself to other people, but I am comparing myself to how well I'm progressing. And to me, I didn't progress like I wanted to. And then I had to pause. And everybody should always take a pause, right? And I had to think about all the positive things that really started happening. I backslid to number 13. I still made 6 figures, and I took 7 months of the year off. No one in a normal W-2 job can do that. I got to repair my own house the way that I wanted it. I got to do all of these things. I got to get married. I got to start a secondary business. I got to retire my wife. That is all positive. However, it felt like a negative, right? It felt like, oh gosh, I saw the leaderboard and I didn't like it. I was like, it's just it's weird. And so I always try to like tell people, just, you're doing better than you tell yourself you are. So if you're just starting out, and you're doing mortgage protection leads, or you're doing, teacher planning leads, I want you to be very aware of what you say to yourself, because you're probably doing a lot better than how you feel that morning. I had a very strange week last week. I had this, her name was Cheryl. I'll say her name. Cheryl is like a Karen. Okay. And she just let me have it. She rescheduled on me twice, and then she's like, "Oh no, this is a scam, blah blah blah. I don't want to meet with you." Okay. So I felt this uh immediate, like, okay, I'm kind of down in the dumps, right? Well, she's like, "I'm reporting you to my IT director." And I thought that was funny. I was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's nothing illegal, nothing, nothing along those lines." And then that afternoon, guess who I met with? The IT director, from the same district, from the same county, and he actually knew Cheryl. And it was funny because we did a $13,000 a year 403B for him. If I had stayed and kept my mindset in the dumps and let Cheryl be my mindset for the day, I can guarantee Jim's, application would have never gone through. So you got to be very careful with that. And I always caution, if something bad happens, let it go within 60 seconds, right? You got about 60 seconds, just get rid of it. So does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's a good mindset. And frankly, when you said you didn't like 2025 business wise,
Right.
to me, I like that. It's like your competitive nature, and it's like I can't stand. I've got every excuse in the world to drop from 2 to 13, although that's not terrible. Um, but you didn't like it. So, I mean, that's the competitive spirit, the drive that, I think is what's you're benefiting from right now. And also, you didn't let that bother you about Cheryl and Jim. Because you're right. If Cheryl got in your head, you never even would have met with Jim. So, that's our business. It requires mental gymnastics to a large extent. So, when you mentioned, you were with Symmetry, you didn't like the mortgage protection, but you came up with Equus. Was it primarily because of the program with the educators? That you saw an opportunity because of the teacher, you know, mother, wife, et
It
cetera.
it truly was. That was one of the main reasons where I just saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I said, I got to get over there, and I've got to get into that space, and I haven't looked back since. Um, I loved the advanced planning. I wrote a huge IUL for a gentleman just a month ago. It paid me $29,000. That's great, right? So uh, just so far this year, just in IUL business, and I'm doing it the right way. So I don't want people to think, oh, he's just writing it, to fill his pocket. That no, I absolutely want to make sure that it's designed properly to make sure that it helps my clients. Like, I'm very client focused, but so far this year, I think I've got about $60,000 worth of IUL business either in the hopper or paid out so far. And then I've got over $1 million in fire production so far, with probably another million to go, and that million's in the last 30 days. So it's been very, very quick. 2026 is not going to be 2025. I'll say that.
So Paul, to follow up, I mean, those are fantastic numbers. I love the million already. 60K in IUL. It's March. Early in March when we're recording this. Um, so I mean, that's a great start to the year. Obviously, I know a lot of people listening or watching are kind of saying, I've heard about the teacher marketplace. I'm not sure. I don't really understand how it is. If you could just spend a minute and convey the opportunity as you see it in that space. I mean, are you doing benefit reviews? You're looking for IUL, you're looking for annuities, what makes it tick?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So we do essentially a pension review. We look at a lot of companies will come into the school and say, here's a 403b, fill out this piece of paper, get back to me, and that's it. There is so much missed opportunity there. So we do this over Zoom, works really well, and that allows the spouse to be there. By adding the spouse in, now I'm looking at the whole picture of the household, right? I know that that teacher may only be making 55 grand a year, but guess whose husband is an engineer pulling in three or $400,000? They're sitting on 1.8 million. At that point, now I go from a pension review showing them, hey, look, this is what you're going to receive at whatever age that state is, or really more realistically is when that teacher wants to retire. If that teacher looks at me and says, Paul, get me out of here, I'm 52, I hate my job, I'm going to come up with a strategy for that. Now, it may be factored in financially because the spouse is making a ton of money and they can retire that teacher. If that's the case, I absolutely need to know what the finances look like for the household. And so then, maybe they've got everything in stock. Maybe they've got everything in bonds. I don't know what that looks like, right? At that point, then I get to say, hey, look, your pension's going to provide this. Your Social Security is likely to provide this. Your retirement plans are currently at this, this, and this, right? Usually, one or two. And then collectively, this is what it's going to look like. Now, if they've got considerable assets at that point, I may say, hey, look, you're out here flapping in the wind with that 1.8. What if we were to take some of that, diversify it a little bit, secure it from market losses? And a lot of times they'll say, well, you know what, my financial planner, we already do that. Okay. Did your financial planner show you anything that I've shown you? Well, no, they didn't. Okay. So that's okay too. So here's my goal with that. Every wealthy person, they don't have one person. They don't have the financial, planner. They don't have the brother-in-law. They have a team. I'm just asking to be a part of your team. And when when you add me to your team, I'm going to take a look at this and control this. I'm not saying get rid of your financial planner. I'm saying add me to your team. Does that sound fair? And it gets around the financial planner piece, right? Everyone's got someone, right? At that point, it really adds value to that household. And that allows me to diversify $500,000, 750,000, whatever that might be.
I love what you just said right there, and I hope everybody will play that back and write down what you just said about how you deal with folks that say they've got a guy or a gal that helps them. That's one of the best responses to that I've ever heard, and I'll probably borrow that. And it's such a common sense thing to say too, because it's 100% true. So that was a great insight that you supplied there.
I haven't always said that, and I'm going to say my numbers reflect it. I just probably started adding that. Recently, I've been working more Virginia and Massachusetts appointments, and I'm from Virginia originally, and I always found everyone always has something. And so I kept on thinking about this. And it's weird. I do a lot of my thinking either at the gym, in the sauna, or on a tractor. Very, very different places, right? And that one came to me probably back in December. and I had a lot of tractor time at that point. Um, and and I said, you know what, let's try it. Right. I'm very game for trying different things. And so I've had my team try, to add that in, and it seems, to be working for them also. So I really think that by adding it, it just everyone has a wall up, and it just lowers that wall even more. I'm not in competition with their advisor. I'm not trying to snake away any money from the brother-in-law, right? Who's, by the way, he's a plumber. He's not a financial person. And so it's one of those things where by reducing that wall in every single way while building trust, that's how you win clients. And that, in all my I guess teaching of this, building the trust is probably the biggest aspect of it.
Yeah, and Paul, I agree 100%. And you do that right off the bat by showing them what their pension's going to be, spending a little bit of time, positioning yourself as an expert in their benefits. So
So think, Pete, that's perfect. So think about this. So think about that person that shows up at the school saying, "Hey, fill out this. This is your 403b." When you do that, you're asking for something. You're never providing anything. What you said, I'm showing up with your pension numbers. I'm showing up with a little bit of advice. I am giving them something.
yeah,
It's a complete role reverse. And that's the way it should be.
100%. And another thing, and then Bill, we'll get to you.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are gonna, like the teacher making 55,000 who's married to an engineer who's making 200-300. That's one situation, but a lot of situations I'm sure you run into, the teacher's making 55, she may or may not even be married. There's no way that, she's got a financial planner because, at the Wells Fargo, Merrill Lynch's, whatever, it typically, to even get an appointment with them, you need 250,000 of investable assets. So a lot of people have no direction at all. And that's why they're signing that slip that comes in. Here's your 403B. Oh, I heard I should have one. I have no idea what I'm doing, but here, and so you're positioning yourself as somebody who can help them as well. You're not going to turn anybody away. I mean, do you find that often?
Absolutely. Look, most teachers don't even know what they make. And you know this, right? Hey, what's your gross salary? And they stare off into the abyss trying to think of what that number is. Right then, they have no idea what the difference between a 403 and a Roth and an IUL and a FIA and a brokerage account, all of these weird little things. Um, and by being their person and showing a little heart to them, they will come back tenfold. I did a IUL for a young lady yesterday. She's a volleyball coach, and she put me into her phone as Paul the retirement magician. And I'm like, I didn't tell her to do that. I don't ever, but I ever put her into my into her cell phone. And so she's going around telling all of the young people, because she's young, she's 28, what they're not going to get in their pension, because they think that they're getting one number, but they're not. And so she's sending referrals to me because at this point she's like, wait a minute, they think that they're getting the wrong number. And so they need to be adjusted a little bit. And that's a state thing. Every state's a little different, but yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
That's awesome. Earlier you said something about when you were telling the story of Jim, you said you helped him do a $13,000 403B. Let's expand on that a little bit. I mean, was this a situation where these are new contributions going in to an existing 403B, or did you help start up a 403B through the school district? What exactly took place there?
So in his case, we actually, uh, he is, he's 60. Yeah, 60. He's 60 and he is with another company, which I'll choose not to say. And in our conversation, he realized that he was putting into a 403b. So not only did we start a 403, but it was actually a Roth 403b because his county actually offered that through National Life Group. So absolutely love the direction that we were able to take him there. But what he found out was when he called his existing company, which we do not use, uh, they have a 5-year waiting period. So the moment that he stops contributing, he has to wait 5 years. If we hadn't had that conversation when we had, his plan is to retire in 5 years. If we hadn't had the conversation, then he wouldn't have known to stop contributing right now. And it's a very strange thing. I've never seen that rule before, but this company threw him a curveball and he was like, "My God, like I'm so happy that we sat down because it spurred me to make that phone call, to find out that information, and then that allowed me to do my last 5 to 10 years worth of planning. So therefore, I'm good to retire when I'd planned to. Otherwise, he was going to have to keep on working, and he was not happy. What we set up was a brand new Roth 403b. We would consider that a flow account, right? So he has X amount pulled out. In his case, it's weird because it comes out every week. So it pulls out every week. And so over time, now with that one, I did the flex bonus. So we could pick up the 5% growth on the bonus every single year for the next 8 years. So that was a nice little feature for him. And then he is planning on continuing to work. So even after he retires in 5, he's going to work somewhere else and then continue to contribute, with that if possible. So that's kind of how that was going.
So, for our folks that aren't familiar with how that works exactly, National Life has what's called a payroll slot in that particular school district that you were working in, which allows them to take, he gets paid weekly, it sounds like. So the school district pulls his 403b contributions out of his paycheck. They go to a third party administrator, and then that third party administrator sends that money to National Life. And then you get paid commission every single time he makes a contribution into that 403b.
Correct.
So
Yes.
how did you figure out that National Life was an approved vendor in that particular school district? Because a lot of times, even though National Life is the number one provider of fixed indexed annuity contracts in educator retirement plans in the country, they're not in every school district. How did you figure out that they were in the school district and then that you would have access? Because sometimes, even if they're in a school district, they will have that school district locked down for a particular IMO or even a particular agent. So how did you go through the process to see that this was available for you to be able to do?
So in this case, he just happened to be in Massachusetts, and I worked directly with NLG for that county. Now, Massachusetts is a weird little beast because you may be in one county, but then their 403s are set up town by town within the counties. So what I've found is like, oh, you're in such and such county, but you're in Harvard town or some other little town, and that may not be covered. So that is currently still something that I'm working through. it's not an exact science. Sometimes you're calling the central office and, figuring out who the TPA is and what form do they want. And, do you want, the central office to have the form before it goes to the third party administrator? Sometimes it's reverse. Sometimes the central office says, "Hey, we don't want to see them at all. Send them directly to the TPA." Right? We're hands off for that. So everything's a little different for that. That is definitely something that is a learned, I won't say a learned behavior, but it is not always the easiest thing to accomplish. Um, as many as I have done, I still will have the occasional, I'm going to say rejection. I did a really cool one with a lady, I don't know, last month, and her TPA sent her a message back saying, "You're not an employee." So it's like, okay, I gotta step back and punt again. So, but NLG has a lot of really good resources for you. Um, I find myself uh, calling in to, speak with them probably about once a week. So
The
hopefully
full
that works for
SVB
you.
unit.
Yeah, or they're, they're set up into different regions, and so sometimes I'll call the regional rep as well because sometimes they will have some insight. And I've also ran into, this was in Virginia not too long ago. I had a region that, well, I was working with this lady. She switched counties. Okay, she switched counties from someone that was, uh adopted by NLG to a county that was not. Well, they were with NLG. However, they were a protected district, meaning I could not work with that teacher. But my teacher said, "I won't work with anyone else." And I was like, "Okay, I loved hearing that, right? That's awesome to hear." So that was a little bit of a thing where I had to work with NLG, and I mean, I already had a Roth with my teacher, already had a couple other, things with her. So she didn't want to work with the NLG rep that her school provided. So that was a little bit of a challenge. But we got through it, and we're working through that. But
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm surprised that took some doing, I'm sure. So anyway, congrats on that one. I wouldn't recommend that everybody start trying to do that. But
no.
yeah. Um Paul, there are a lot of agents listening, viewing, watching it on demand, um, who aren't in the educator field, or don't work with teachers. But, we always say annuities are low hanging fruit. And I know you've worked mortgage protection in the past. What would you advise or share, with our agents on how to identify opportunities for indexed annuities? How do you find it?
So it begins with your initial conversation. And so again, I used to do mortgage protection. I understand that space. Um, you're trying to provide them something that you don't know what the full picture looks like. Okay. I'm going to let you know you're doing it wrong. Okay. So what I'm going to tell you is that back up, instead of just trying to score that $100, $150 a month mortgage protection life insurance plan, take a deeper dive into what the household needs in assets. Okay. So they may have a house, they may have, mom's going to pass away in 3 or 4, 10 years, whatever, and you may inherit a house. Well, if that's the case, are you selling mom's house? Are you renting it? Is that going to give them some disposable income? When you think about that, what does your retirement plan at work look like? Do you have a 401k? Get a full picture of what the household assets are. And I don't mean cars. I want to know what each piece of it is. or boats. There you go, Bill. And so
Lawnmowers. I've seen lawnmowers on an asset picture.
yeah, your 50 lawnmowers in the front yard shouldn't count for much, but it does. But by doing that, that's going to give you a better understanding of what you need to help the client accomplish. Think about that, what I just said. If they've got considerable assets, say it's 2 houses, or they're going to inherit a second house, maybe that $50,000 whole life plan is not enough. And you need to show them that it's not enough. And then by doing that, they understand that what they're buying is value for their future and not just some impulse buy that you're going to get a chargeback on, right? You need to make sure that that business sticks. And by doing that, you're building trust. Hey, tell me, how much do you have in that 403B? You're not prying. This gives a lot of people are nervous when they ask stuff like that. I always ask the odd question, and I call it the odd question. Hey, Bill, I'm going to ask you an odd question. Yeah, look, I hope that this isn't, the case for a long, long time, but, you know, are your parents living, is when they pass away, are you going to inherit a house that you and your brothers and sisters may have to sell? Are you going to inherit that boat that, you're going to sell? Are you going to, get some big chunk of land? Anything weird like that going on? It's such an unassuming question.
I
People,
thought we were role playing for a second. I was about to
yeah,
answer.
they just throw it out there. So by doing that, that allows you to really jump in to what else they have. When you hear things like, "Oh, well, I've got a $500,000 in the stock market, and I'm really concerned about it. I don't want to take any market losses." Right then, you need to bring in a specialist, or if you've never done it before, bring in a specialist, or you're going to mess it up. I promise, and you're going to lose the business. Bring in someone, whether it's myself or just there's a few of us. Bring us in, and you're going to diversify some of that 500, so that way that's your tomorrow money. It's not your today money. It's your tomorrow money, because in 10 years, in 7 years, they're going to have that asset that didn't take market losses, and that's going to allow them to retire comfortably into their 80s and 90s. Okay. So that's kind of my approach on that.
Thank you. I know that's going to help a lot of people.
Last question I've got for you is, I've seen a lot of folks in the work in the teacher space will sell IULs to folks that teachers that are like, "Hey, I'm going to retire in the next, 5 or 6 years." And using an IUL as a tax-free income vehicle for somebody who's going to retire in 5 years is not always the best idea, but we still see a lot of IULs being sold there because they will talk to them about, hey, what's going to happen when you retire? You're still going to have your insurance, and they will just sell the IUL more as, from a protection standpoint versus from a accumulation or income standpoint. Um, how do you have that conversation with folks where an IUL from a income standpoint is not necessarily the best idea, but life insurance is? What does that sound like from you?
I love telling agents that, because they always come to me and they'll say, "Hey, I've got this 62-year-old and she wants to put $500 a month into an IUL." And in many cases, I'll stop them and I'll say, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right? They're 62 and eh, they're retiring in a few years. It may not be the best option, right? You have to really fund an IUL to make it significant for the growth side of things, right? Especially at that age. If they need living benefits, it may be a fit. And I'm going to say maybe. but I'm probably going to lean 10 to 15% of the time it's a fit. Most of the time it's not. And I'm not afraid to tell your client or tell my client that same thing because I'm doing right by the client. And in my opinion, that's what matters the most. I cannot stress that enough. Um, I recently had a client, he retired from the federal government and he's 50 and we're putting 20,000 a year, excuse me, 24,000 a year into an IUL. I normally may say, hey, look, this isn't a great fit because he's already 50. He's healthy. He's got lots of money and he has lots of money coming in. He was looking for that tax advantaged piece. So that really mattered to him. And I really, was able to maximize his growth uh, and he's super happy, right? He's referring other federal employees to me. But if he came to me and said, "Hey, I've got $1,000 a year," now I'm gonna probably point him in a different direction. Hopefully that answered your question, Bill.
Well, I think the point there is we talk a lot about using IULs as a retirement funding vehicle, and I just want to make sure folks understand that it's not always the best fit depending on the age of the client and what their goals and objectives are for, how long they can fund it and when they want to start, taking tax-free loans back out. So,
That's right.
no,
And,
that's
and, I,
very good.
and I'd say the flip side of that also works. So when I meet a teacher that is in their 20s, but let's say their state pension system will not turn on until the age of 60. I let that teacher know, hey, look, I'm going to let you know what all my 52, 55-year-old teachers say. Get me out of here. I can't take another minute of this job. By having an IUL at 28 or even earlier, that allows them to pick and choose when they get to retire. If they just have a 403B and a pension, everyone knows you can't, pull from your 403B without penalties until 59 and a half. So that doesn't allow that teacher to escape the job that they over time may learn to hate. The IUL does. Again,
Very important.
it's not always the best fit, but for that young person that will be burnt out in 30 some odd years, it's perfect. It's truly perfect.
100%.
Another good nugget, Pete.
Another good one. That's a great one. Yeah. Paul, this has been
You're all we got.
yeah, this has been fantastic. I was
I agree.
thinking, is it like tulip season? I mean, is now the time for tulips?
So it is, depending on where you are. So tulips are a cold weather bulb. They like the cold. And then once the ground temperature hits about 60 degrees, then they'll it's like an internal light switch. They turn on and then they start growing. So what I have here is actually, let me put it in front of my face.
Yeah, we
So
got it.
this is an early riser. So we've got a few of those in the field, but really the 20th of March I'm in Tennessee. So Middle Tennessee, that's when we will see our fields just explode. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. So if you're in the area, you'll have to swing on by.
Yeah, I'll tell you. That'd be cool.
Yeah, my son and I moved a 1950s GMC truck that was restored. We moved that into the field this morning, and so it has no power steering. So imagine a 13-year-old trying to steer it. And I'm pulling it with a tractor, and so he's trying not to hit stuff. So, but yeah, it's
Well,
good.
you're a man of many talents, Paul. Going strong with the annuities, the IULs, and the tulips. So we are, and apparently home restoration with with the flood you found. So you got it all, man. Good job, and you've been to Belize recently. You got it all going.
Yes. I'm going to blame my dad on the home restoration one. So he taught us a lot as kids, and so I'm trying to instill that on my kids. And uh, so, well, I know I'm planning on coming down to the conference. So literally 2 days before our huge weekend, I'll be down in Florida with you guys. So busy, but not too busy to not go to the conference.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Great job.
Our pleasure. This was great. Appreciate the nuggets that you shared. I think there's a lot that the good folks at Equus can learn from what you've, went through here today. So we appreciate you for joining us very much. And I'll kick it over to Pete to close us out.
All right. Well, hey, Paul, again, thank you very much. Bill, thank you. And thank everybody for tuning in, and do the same next week, because we'll be here doing the same thing. Not with Paul, but it'll never be with me. Paul, great job. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all next week. Take care.